plateau. So those are your, like, I'd start looking at that. Well, which one is it? Ebb and flow, by the way, for like, well, what is ebb and flow? Everything has a season. Every biological system on Earth has a season. It's designed that way. So sometimes fighting against an ebb is not materially worth it. Fighting against an ebb, as an example, for those who swam in the ocean or surf, it would be like when the tide's coming in or the surf is coming in and you're fighting trying to go out, right? If you just wait for a second, it'll switch and go back out, and now you ride the flow back out. Does this make sense? So there's times in our lives where there's an ebb and flow and we fight into that ebb and exert. Like if anybody's ever been in a riptide or swum in the ocean, the first thing they tell you is what? Don't fight the current, don't fight the riptide. That's your ebb. Let it go and catch the flow back in. Now,
all right, guys, we have the man himself. Let me spotlight.
What's going on?
How's it going?
How's it going, man?
Happy 2025.
Happy 2025, brother.
We ready to rock this or what?
Oh yeah, sure.
What are you drinking?
I got my
All right, let's get into it. There's no one other than Sabastian Enges to start the year for us. So we have him on deck right now. So let's start it because we know we have a lot of new faces today. So we're gonna start introducing Sabastian. Sabastian hired me in 2017 under his organization. And obviously, I mean, it's 8 years now, man. Time flies. I just remember that like yesterday. And gave me an opportunity to do so. He helped me to give an opportunity for you guys, and not just us. I mean, if you look at the poster right behind you guys, 40 officers plus now going stronger, and that happened literally in like 16 years time and created so many millionaires. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's such a good feeling to look back in like 16 years time and seeing how many people's lives that you have changed rather than the money that you make. I think we are falling. Sometimes we go after money rather than adding value for people and changing people's lives. And I think one of the biggest things you used to say or still say is add value for people rather than more than you take from them, which has been our mission in our organization from Manco from the start, and help as many people as you can, and they will help you in the process. Right. Yep. So we're going to start with introducing Sabastian because there's a lot of new faces here and also new senior leaders, new leaders with leaders. I don't think you have met everyone yet. So let's start with your story, Sabastian. I think one of the biggest stories that I remember, how you drove a V8, if I'm right, or a V6 when you started with Vani's offices and your gas tank used to go down every single time. And I feel like I think Casey was pregnant at that time, if I'm right. Right. So let's start with that story because everyone sees now Sebastian's story of a YouTube version, but they don't understand you did not get there. You didn't arrive there overnight. It's a 16, 20 years or 30 years process, right? Let's start from there, Sebastian.
Yeah, and to create even a further frame, it's cool. Like Fareed and Sheree are here this last few days, and it's been awesome having them here. It's been a blessing to get to spend time with them, and I can't wait for you and Nina to come up, Heshan, and do the same thing. But I was showing them around a little bit, and it made me start thinking. I moved by intention. I moved back to the town I grew up in, and for a lot of reasons, and I split my time here, though it's getting harder and harder for me to want to leave. But I drove by a house that I grew up in, and it's a tiny little duplex, and is not people are often shocked when they see the way I was raised. It was between a duplex and a mobile home for most of my early childhood, and then our final house was a decent one when I was in middle school, high school. So all that to say, I grew up pretty impoverished. My mom never made more than $20,000 a year. I was raised by a single mom. So I didn't grow up around entrepreneurs. I didn't grow up around millionaires, and I certainly didn't inherit millions of dollars or, it wasn't given to me. So fast forward, coming out of 2008, I got my ass whooped. 2008 was the financial crisis, one of the dubbed the Great Recession. And I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be part of a business that I could grow and develop people. And that's what I was passionate about. And I had just left T-Mobile right before the 2008 crisis to start my own business. And then I got just wrecked. And so AT&T was trying, a couple of times had recruited me, hey, come work for us. And that was T-Mobile's biggest competitor. And I said, hey, I'm not interested in working for you. If there's a consultant role, if there's a way to work with you, I would be down for that. And nothing happened. And then I get a phone call. And before I answer the phone call, this little small still voice said, "This is for you." And I knew it. I was like, all right, this is whatever this is. And it was Juanice's recruiter. And I'd already researched this company called Sidecore, as I knew it, and was interested. And then when I found out they were representing AT&T and it was a way in to consult for AT&T, not work for them, I was like, I'm coming in, super interested, because my background was in telecom. I understood the game. But it was tricky. I mean, I had a V8 Jeep. I didn't know it at the time, but the position I was interviewing for was 72 miles away into the Inland Empire, which for me would be like the Shadowlands. Like if you think of Simba sitting up on Pride Rock with his father. He's like, what is that? And he's like, that's the Shadowlands. Never go there, Simba. The Inland Empire was the Shadowlands for me, and it was a long drive out there. And I trusted. I said, this is meant for me, and I'm going to find a way to make it work. And so, yeah, I drove out there 14 months, and to Heshan's point, I could watch my gas go down as I was driving. A V8 Jeep was not meant for the long haul, but it was literally the only vehicle we had. And Casey, we had Lucas already. I think he was 9 or 10 months old when I started. He was under a year, but not much under a year when I started. And then not too far after that, we got pregnant with Damien. I think I was an assistant manager about to get promoted to rookie ownership when Damien entered the world. So there was a lot on the line, and there was a lot of stress. And the first few months, just the position that we were in, like, I was living paycheck to paycheck. When I started, I didn't know how I was paying rent at the end of the month. That's how close to the line I got. And it was a stressful season. But now I look back at all of that with a certain fondness and gratefulness that I went through that. Because and I talk about this a lot, but in the pursuit of something bigger and greater than yourself, the thing you will likely be more proud of is who you had to become in the process of achieving something great, right? It forces you to grow. It forces you to level up, or you stay the same and you don't achieve anything and you say this shit doesn't work and life is hard and boohoo, poor me, and life is happening to me. But for those who are really on the journey of growth, it requires something of you. It asks you, it invites you to grow. And so you really do want to build a lifestyle of growth and have a personal development plan, how you want to get better and how you want to develop. And I think to me, that's what I pulled out of that season of my life. And it was a hard season. It was challenging, but I'm really thankful for everything I was taught in that. I also told me what I was capable of, and it built my confidence.
I love it. I'm gonna straight moving into one of the biggest things that caught my attention back in the days when I was in these guys' shoes as a rep. I think I remember when I come in for the interview, EB interviewed me and you were doing the morning meeting, and I was asking EB, that assistant manager guy is really good. And he's and I didn't know you were the CEO of the company. And one of the biggest things that caught my attention in the first 30 days is this thing that we always use now, be so good you can't be ignored. I remember in our old office, we used to have it right as a locker room, like you're like exiting, and that's the energy to it every time that we walked in the room, like be so good you can't be ignored. And that was my intention the first 30 days. I was like, these foreign kids coming from nowhere, only way that I want to have a chance in this is, especially competing with the Orange County folks, is I just need to be good at everything that I'm doing. Otherwise, I'm going to get ignored easily. Right? Yep. That's a energetical factor to it, like every time that you mentioned that office mentioned it. So how did this all start? Be so good you can't be ignored, and now like over 40 offices, over 300-400 reps is playing the same game now. But how did it start with you, and what made you want to use that code so much? Why was it so close to your heart?
Such a great question. And it really is my internal mantra. Words are cheap. And as you get older and you build alliances and you build partnerships and you start to build businesses, you'll start to value people's words a lot less, and you'll start paying attention to what they do a lot more. And so the aha for me, the actual aha in context, was I was on a campaign that was struggling. And I knew it was struggling, and and I knew why it was struggling. This was way back. And I wanted to transition on to retail, which was my original intent when I got into the business. And I was still really new. Now I had done some good things. I mean, back when getting the $1 Million Club was really hard. Uh, my first year, I was I think under 40 grand from hitting it, which would be like 1.8 million in today's dollars. I had built an office of 50 people, but we were in a season where we were struggling. And I went to the campaign manager and at the time the operations manager, who is now the CEO of the company, and I explained what was going on. And it was nothing that they said per se, but there was a look in their eyes like they were still trying to decide whether my assessment of what was happening was because of my ineptitude or my inability to execute, or if there really was something going on. Meaning, I hadn't built a reputation yet that gave me the credibility I wanted to get what I want. And it infuriated me, like literally infuriated me, tears in my eyes, so frustrated. And I promised myself I will never put myself in a position where my competency is being questioned when I ask for something. Right now, we're not all good all of the time at everything. So that's not what I mean. But if I come to the table with a goal or a desire for a campaign or a market or whatever it is, I want to make sure that my competency and my reputation are never what is holding me back from getting what I want. And that's where Be So Good came from, because ultimately, the only thing we're in control of is ourselves. The only thing we have a shot at being in control of is ourselves. And this is so hard for humanity to understand. Most humans are spending an enormous amount of their energy participating in the illusion of control, that they can control others, that they control the environment, they can control outcomes outside of themselves. And they get very, very frustrated and exhausted. When I understood, listen, the only thing I got to do is control myself, control my outcomes, control my results, and everything else will come to me, the world became my oyster. And that's Be So Good You Can't Be Ignored. Just get a result that is so damn good that nobody is questioning your competency or your character. And it's helped. I mean, it's our entire Iron Toro organization is built on that mantra, has been fed by that reputation, and many doors have opened for us that are not obvious or normal because of that reputation. And it's on every one of us to continue to show up that way. And so if you're really good, if you're really, really good at the game, doors will open to you because we desperately need great people. We're not like, there's no reason, the way our business is built and the partners that we have, they're all national, sometimes multinational companies with huge growth appetites. Like there's no reason to slow anyone down. We could grow, we can grow, and we can grow. We just need competent people of high character to take those positions. Thus, Be So Good You Can't Be Ignored.
Chris, you say that because fast forward moving is like father raising a child is like a leader, right? And then how it has related to all 40 offices across the nation. And most of us can actually get whatever we want because we do, without even knowing, we keep doing the right things over time. And the campaigns or whatever Citco comes or AT&T comes in, we are the first people to get it. And that's also without your influence. Now we get it because that's the way that you have raised.
100%.
Right? And that's automatic. Going from that question, kind of like energetically, a lot of times I think in leadership, we tend to copy and paste things that works for us, like for example, systems or sales. I think I did this mistake a lot when I started as a rookie owner. A lot of things I said sounded like Sebastian. A lot of words I used sound like Sebastian because I grew up with you in the business. All right. And then when you started living it and then copy and pasting the same thing, it has a different energy to it. And it happens in leadership. In leadership, we started trying to dress like our leader. We started to walk out like our leader. When you started living like your leader, there's a different energy to it. Why do you think it takes some time for people to understand it's not about just copy and pasting? First live it and then copy and paste it.
Yeah. Such a great deep question, bro. It is the integration of truth that makes that effective. So, and I do think start where you're at. So if you're saying the same words and you're saying them with intent and you're saying them to be sincere, they will integrate and they will become part of who you are. I don't think there's anything wrong with that unless it's a gimmick, it is insincere and you're using it to manipulate and you're simply what's the word I'm looking for? Copying someone to get a goal, to get to something. But if it's truly who you are and that integration is pure, then that is a natural part of it. All of us are a makeup of the people that we've looked up to, that we've emulated, that we've learned from. That's the nature of humanity. We are social creatures. We have a PFC or prefrontal cortex that was really designed for observational learning in a social construct, meaning that is exactly how we're designed. All of us are built that way. Now, the integration part is the important part. You could have two people present essentially the same roadmap or the same process for making $100 million, right? They deliver the same content. They may even dress the same way. But at the end, I could poll everyone and I could go, hey, what do you think, or who do you think you enjoyed more as a speaker? Speaker A, speaker B. What you don't know is that speaker A is literally worth $100 million plus, and speaker B is an hourly employee that's never made more than $50,000 a year. I guarantee you, most of you would pick speaker A, and you wouldn't necessarily know why. What you're picking up on is one is speaking from an integrated truth of understanding, and the other one is speaking from theory. And it's obvious when they speak. Somebody could use the exact same words and say the exact right things, but if it's still theory to them, it will energetically come out in the way that they speak. It's obvious to them. Whereas the person who's done it, you can feel that too. There's an alignment to what they say. Now, theory is not horrible. Theoretical is the third best person to get advice from, and probably the last person I would get advice from, right? There's really three groups of people to get advice from. The theoretical, the people that are potentially educated and are well read enough to know that something may work or see that it has worked in others through learning and teaching. The second group would be someone who is in witness to people who have done it. So that would be someone who maybe was roommates with somebody who wrote the code for Meta back when it was Facebook, right? And they were there, they understood what it took. Or maybe somebody who was roommates with somebody who lost 90 pounds, or their best friend built a multi-million-dollar business that they helped from an outside perspective and they saw, right? They were in witness too. So they saw it in real life work. They just didn't do it. They were an observer to it by some extenuating relationship. Ultimately, the best people to get advice from in any area of your life is people who have done what it is you are trying to accomplish. Right? And I don't know why that is such a baffling concept in our culture, but it is. We are horrible as a people group at who we get our advice from. Right? We get advice.
But I think also it's coming down to because you can't relate to them.
Right. Yeah, totally. You're right about that too. But it's tricky. So for me, if I want to get in the best shape of my life, I want to get with somebody who's in the best shape of their life that has a lot of the same dynamics that I do. Right? If I want to sell a business for $100 million and plus, I need to get with people who are doing that. If I want to decide whether a business opportunity is right for me or not, I'm not going, no offense to mom. I'm not going home and asking mom about it. I'm not asking my dad if he's been a full-time employee of another company his entire life. They're not qualified to assess that situation. Right? If I want to invest in the stock market or open an IRA, I'm not talking to somebody who's never done that and hear them say, oh, that's risky. Right? And another way to like reverse this is if you don't want the life of the person you're getting advice from, do not ask them advice. The best they can give you from integrated knowledge is the life they created for themselves. And this is hard. This is hard for humanity to understand. We generally get advice for people who are in the same world that we're in, which is why, even though we do not have a class system in the United States, which, believe it or not, there are parts of the world that do still have a class system, people don't leave their socioeconomic class that they were born into. And it's not because somebody's holding you down. It's not because the system is set to keep you down, as much as people would love to believe that shit because it keeps them off the hook of being responsible for themselves. It's because if all the people you surround yourself with think, act, and behave just like you, good fucking luck being anything different. You become an echo chamber to yourself. All the people think and behave like you can't see anything outside of that social construct. And this happens all of the time, all over the world. If you want to grow and you want to change, get around people who are growing and changing, and get around people who have what you want. Word. Preaching myself happens.
Nice. I love it. Here we go. We're gonna change it up a little bit. Favorite TV show of last year, if you watched any.
I do watch a little TV, Wheel of Time, but that's because the book is my favorite book series. It's 15 books, but I'd say the Wheel of Time, I think, comes to me immediately.
Favorite biohack you figured out last year. Oh, by the way, before we go there, have you done the hydrogen bath?
Have I done the what?
Hydrogen water or hydrogen bath. Have you got into any of that?
No, I haven't. I'm not against it. It just hasn't been my jam. I would say I'm really in back to basics mode, but on a deeper level. So heat therapy, sauna is a big one for me. Red light therapy is a big one for me. And then I've done this for a while, but I've really cut back my caffeine. So I stay under 2 milligrams. This is my 1 cup of bulletproof coffee I'll have today. It's frothy because it's got butter, collagen, cinnamon, and coffee. And it keeps me rocking the entire day. But that isn't a new one. And then forest walks have been a big one. Just getting out in nature more, grounding more. So all of those have been great for me and I've enjoyed them. But I don't think I'm doing anything at the moment that's on the edge. I've definitely over the years have experimented with different stuff, but I tend to come back to things that are tried and true.
Nice, I love it. Okay, this question I asked you last year as well. You got 1 right, 2 wrong. All right, but I'm gonna let the people in the office participate in this question too. So I want everyone in the office to take a piece of paper. We all gonna predict the top 2 teams gonna walk into the NFL to represent their team in the Super Bowl New Orleans. We're gonna start with Sebastian. What is your top 2 teams, your prediction?
For the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl, yeah.
The Detroit Lions and the Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
So Bills gonna be Chiefs gonna be out.
I don't think the Chiefs are going to be in the Super Bowl this year.
Ooh. All
I
right.
know that's a hard thing to bet against as they've been there, 3 times in a row. I think this is the year Josh Allen and co gets it together and they represent the AFC. And I think the Detroit Lions, although I would say the Eagles have a really damn good chance too. But I'm going to go with the Detroit Kitties.
All right, cool. All right. Here we go. This is the most I think I picked a lot from this meeting that you ran yesterday. So we're gonna bring it back. I know we have 6 minutes, probably not gonna be enough time to cover it. But we'll just talk about the framework, right? How you build Phoenix, but more like the Phoenix model that we discussed yesterday.
Yep.
Rising from the ashes, rebuilding yourself, and the biggest part, obviously, this team probably gonna biggest aha moment for them is probably gonna be like leave the past, rather than bringing those parts like the pain that you're going through with the past experience for the present self, right? And then you can't move forward because that's the energy that pulls you, keep pulling you back. Because if you bring those past memories, right? So let's talk about that framework a little bit, and after that, we're probably gonna do another call to like explain more. That's like it's a 30-45 minutes call.
Yeah. So every new level requires a new level of you. And I've recognized this in my own life as I go through my patterns. Where we get stuck is where we are unwilling to grow and to change. Sometimes this is obvious, and in early life, that growth and change sometimes will look like the difference between making good decisions and bad decisions, right? And that's a tricky one for a lot of people. It's just you can get pretty far in life just removing bad decisions. Okay, well, what is a bad decision? I don't usually talking good and bad. The duality of that can make it confusing, but we could say the most beneficial decisions, which the through line in that is consistent all the way up. But But I would define a bad decision as a decision that has potentially a short-term payoff, but is long-term not sustainable. Right? So, eating junk food every day, short-term payoff, you may feel satiated or you may get a dopamine hit from the flavor combo, but your body is paying the price. And over time, all of your performance metrics are going to go down. Obvious one. Not being great with your money, spending money impulsively instead of deploying it into things that make you money, creating freedom for yourself. Not being great in relationship, not being honest in your relationships, not being a person of character in your relationships, having a habit of lying, right? Those are all, to me, obvious bad decisions that a lot of times people have to get through. They're lifestyle decisions. Just cutting out the bad shit or the non-beneficial shit for the good can take you pretty far, right? They're like, you can get pretty far just on that. And usually when you see people begin to mature, that's what is happening. They're maturing their character. And as their character gets better and as their mentality gets better, they get more successful. However, all of us probably know an aunt or uncle that never made that jump. And now they're in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, and they're no further along. They're stuck in the rat race, whatever that looks like for them, and they're repeating the bullshit over and over again. And it usually comes in the form of woulda, shoulda, coulda, and then framing life is happening to me. Why this happens is because as time goes on, we acquire more memories, and those memories become the building blocks of our story of self, our identity. And we don't have time to unpack this completely today, so I just want to create the frame, and I'd be happy to jump on a call again and we can go through this. The strongest psychological driver in the human mind is the desire to be congruent with the way we see ourselves, which is a hack if you understand that, and you know how to shape your identity. The problem is most people think their identity is something that happened to them, not something they created. And because they think their identity that is something that's happened to them, they'll make statements like, and if it's not you, you know someone in your life who's made these statements or consistently makes these statements. I would invite anyone hearing this that says these things to explore where they may be holding themselves back. Here's things. That's just not my personality. That's not the way I was raised. That's not what my teacher taught me. That's not how we do things in my family. That's not how we do things in my country. That's not how we do things in my town. Any of those global statements is an area in which you've identified this is part of who I am, probably unconsciously, without realizing the consequences of those decisions. And then you go out into the world and you decide you want to be something consciously, but you seem to self-sabotage in your pursuit of that thing. And you don't understand why. And if you're totally unaware, you may put your hands up, look into the sky, and go, why is this happening to me? And the reason is you have internal programming that you are not conscious of that is driving your life when you are not conscious, which, by the way, willpower is how most people stay conscious, and you have a finite amount of that. And so there's only amount of time that you can stay conscious in your decisions without dealing with the underlying programming. And so ultimately, Phoenix was born out of this concept of being reborn again and again and again, not getting so attached to a particular story or identity that it holds you back from being the best you possibly can be, which goes back to be so good you can't be ignored. It's the potentiation of the human that you are, which very often means letting go of something that may have served you in one area of your life or in one season of your life that no longer does. By the way, most of the things we hold on to because it did serve us in a particular time in our life, right? And a lot of what we've learned, for most of us, those unconscious programmings were pretty well baked while we were still kids. And so it's childhood experiences that led us to behave and think particular ways. And most people don't take the time to evaluate whether they're necessary anymore. This is why, to backtest what I'm saying, if you grew up in a house that had lots of financial problems, you're probably going to have a lot of financial problems. And you may go, well, that's just what we do in my family. And I would say, no, that's because your programming is set just like your family's, because that's all you've known. If you lived statistically, if you came from a divorced family, you were way more, I think 5 times more likely to get divorced. That's not because you're destined to be divorced. It's because your models of the world showed you that that's what happens. That's what life looks like. If you grew up in an unhealthy, obese family, you were likely going to be obese because that is all you know. That is the programming you were given. And without any kind of conscious intervention, you were just going to repeat what you saw. If your family worked at the plant or worked for somebody else, and that is all you've seen, unless you become conscious and decide you want something different, you will find your way back there. Because, as I said earlier, this PFC, prefrontal cortex, is designed by observation, as we are social animals that want to fit in with our group. And so if my entire group works at the plant and I decide I'm not going to do that, that's going to be hard, especially if our parents are like, no, that's the path to safety. Do what I did. So it's hard. So reinventing yourself is pulling up these belief systems and going, hey, do they still serve me? Are they still useful? And I would offer to do it in a loving way. There's no need to judge the behavior. There's no need to judge your character or shame yourself for the way you've been. That isn't helpful usually. It's simply deciding I don't need to be that way anymore. And it isn't helping me get to the next phase of my life. So for instance, one last one, I'll hit this one home. If you grew up being a survivor in which you believed I can't trust anybody, I have to take care of myself, you probably got really strong in some ways, right? And you became very resourceful in some ways. The problem is you're probably fairly feral. A feral animal isn't very socially adjusted. It doesn't do well in teams. It doesn't do well working with other people. So then you come into an environment where you're being invited into a team environment where people genuinely want to help each other out, and you don't know how to participate. So you do things that are either super selfish or could be even fraudulent or push the line because you're just trying to take care of yourself, not knowing you're actually hurting yourself by the way you're showing up, but you're totally unconscious about it. You're just trying to protect yourself and do what you've been raised to do. That holds you back from building a multi-million-dollar business and being part of a community because you haven't learned how to let go of that identity and that story of self, and it's keeping you stuck in a pattern. And in order to get to the next level, you burn that bitch to the ground and you build a new set of characters that serve you in this season. I admit that this is hard for most people, and the older we get, the more our identity becomes a huge part of who we think we are. But if you can get in the habit of letting go of the things that no longer serve you, it will help you get to the next level. And one last example, and then I'll let this go. This is a common one I see in the business. If you are the greatest sales guy in our business and you are heaped a lot of praise for being the best sales guy, it may keep you or hold you back from being the best team builder. Because as some of you guys are probably figuring out, the opportunity cost very often on the front end of being a great team builder is your personal sales will drop. And they don't have to, by the way, but the reason they drop is because you're putting energy into two different things. Putting energy into just being great at sales is the easiest our business will ever be. I'm not trying to neg anyone out, but when the only thing you have to worry about is going out and selling, that is the easiest the business will ever be. When you are responsible for other people, the business gets harder. And so if you're so identified with being the best all the time that you don't want to do that, you may not take the time to learn how to be a great team builder because you love the praise of being the best sales guy. Well, I can tell you, I am phenomenal at sales, but I am not making millions of dollars because I go out and sell. I can't remember the last time I was in the store, right? Other than to say hi to people and connect, but to sell. You're going to make way more money being a great leader and being a great coach than you will being great at sales. Now, admittedly, part of being a great leader and being a great coach is being great at sales. It's compelling people to action. But that skill is important So I see people get stuck here all the time because they don't want to relinquish that story of self. And again, what I'm not saying is that when you start training that you should suddenly be okay not being an alpha. I'm saying it gets harder until it isn't. And then eventually you can do both with your eyes closed. Word?
Boom, I love it. Fire. I know we're over time, but I kind of want to hit this home. I know this year, I'm going to stop recording. Here we go.